Hey everybody, welcome again to eChannelNews. We've got Jay McBain on the line. I'm going to talk about some what happened in 2025 and what's going to happen in 2026. First of all, Jay, man, welcome. How are you doing? It looks like you've been doing a lot of traveling, and how's that coming along?
Yeah, it's been a really busy year. I'd say that this year, kind of midway through the decade of the ecosystem, I think we reached the main stage of most Las Vegas events now. And, I don't think there's a CEO or a board anywhere in the technology industry that doesn't look at the partners in the deal and look at the ecosystem around them and understand that in this next 20-year era of AI, that it's all going to be layers of vendors and layers of partners. And there's no linear doing it yourself anymore.
Well, Jay, what was your favorite country this year so far? I don't even know how many countries you've been to.
Wow, I just a week ago got back from the Galapagos and
Oh yeah,
swimming turtles with the kids and sea lions and hammerhead sharks and stuff. That's a recent favorite.
swimming with the sharks. Is that it now?
Yeah, it's pretty much it. Hoping you count your toes when you get out of the water and hoping you're at 10.
Roll's a big place, man. It's a lot of fun. Look, the channel, looking back in 2025, right, Jay, I mean, we're all seeing like crazy stuff happening, a lot of uncertainty, and of course, AI is blowing up everywhere. What's your thoughts if you just look back? What was the defining moments? What are some of the three, the critical trends? And what's your overall feeling of 2025?
Yeah, it's becoming somewhat bifurcated.
Mm,
We, as analysts, we like to talk in averages. For example, the tech industry was the fastest growing industry in the world. It grew at 7%.
mm,
Our customers in other industries grew at 2.2%. But when you look at kind of the world global economy, when you look at the tech industry, the $5.3 trillion that will end up being spent this year, it's a tale of two cities. On one side, you've got this consumer trend of AI. It launched NVIDIA to be the richest, most valuable company in the
mm.
world. It launched Elon Musk to be the richest person in the world. ChatGPT became the fastest growing product in history in any industry. And so all these things we're watching on the consumer side, and then on the business side, we're reading MIT reports saying there's 95% failure rate in projects.
Mm.
Well, then we say, oh, they only talked to 52 people. That's not accurate. But then Accenture, with 779,000 employees, comes and says, well, our number's closer to 90% failure. So we're trying to watch on one side as, trillionaires get minted. And on the business side, I go back to the 1996 Bill Gates, we overestimate what's going to happen in 2 years,
Mm.
but we tend to underestimate what's going to happen in 10. And that's exactly where we are kind of 2 years into AI. One other data point is you just look at the economy. If you took the US economy, for example, 92% of the economic growth in the United States was data centers. Data centers make up 4% of the GDP. You got 4% of the economy driving pretty much the entire growth. So when you think about things like interest rates, when you think about our electricity prices, when you think about the drag on other industries and global policy, when you use these averages, it becomes really difficult because there is one cottage industry driving everything. And us on the business side of that industry, as well as the rest of the economy, has to kind of look at this bifurcated world we're in.
Don't you find that Jada's insane, man? Like to be putting all of our eggs into like one basket like this. I mean, it seems to be crazy because we also have the amount of energy, right? We don't have unlimited of that stuff, right? So if we're investing a ton of this stuff into the data centers and so on, are we really just maybe going too far, too fast in one direction?
I think the answer is no. Because if you're a student of history,
Mm,
the tech industry has been the fastest growing industry, not just this year, but it's been the fastest growing industry now for 50 years in a row. So when you look at the industry, though, it's not just this linear staircase from
mm,
where we were in the UNIVAC 1951 till today. You look at it in eras. In the 60s and 70s were really built in the mainframe era. And at that time, IBM became the biggest company in the world to the point where the US government had to, through antitrust, start breaking it
mm.
apart like AT&T. And, all of the economics are around that. But still to this day, every flight you take sits on a Sabre system from 1964. Every banking transaction you make, every withdrawal, every deposit sits on an IBM mainframe from 1970. There's legacy in that across all industries. But August 12th, 1981, we triggered a new, and it was IBM that triggered a new 20-year era. And it was, Bill Gates coming to meet IBM in Boca Raton, Florida. But 13 years from the date of that meeting, IBM almost missed payroll. So the biggest company in the world, monopoly that had to be broken up by the government, only survived about 13 years into a new era before having to radically change their business. And we saw obviously billionaires get created, the richest people in the world, the biggest companies change in that 20-year era. 1999, you saw Mark Benioff with Salesforce. A few years later, they were making fun of Jeff Bezos on the front cover of Business Week,
Mm.
saying, hey, you should just tend the store. If you think anybody's going to rent out their data to you, you're crazy. Security, compliance, nobody's going to send their data outside of their company. Well, guess what? We triggered a new 20-year cloud era. And that came to kind of a stop around March of 23 when we all saw ChatGPT. And it wasn't us, it was our neighbors, our friends, non-technical folks that asked us if we lit up Skynet. The deep fakes, the poetry, the music, where we are now, a couple of years later, is this new 20-year era. And, while billionaires got created and largest companies, now we're talking about trillionaires. So if you ask, are we going too fast, too far? No. I mean, the answer is this is the next 20 years. And all of us, whether to pay the mortgage or to build a million, 10 million, $100 million business that is, drafting off of these $1 trillion conversations, we have to be focused forward.
You find that, Jay, that we're organic humans, right? Apparently, not all of us are robotic yet, but and we're so hyper automating everything, right? This AI thing is obviously taken on a whole life of its own. Um, do you think that humans need a kind of a pathway to kind of catch up there a little bit? Because I feel that a lot of folks out there are saying, "Man, damned if I do, damned if I don't. I need to do it. I'm not sure I want to do it. I don't want to jump into the AI game so I can kind of like get myself out of a job or automate myself out of a job." That's that bit of uncertainty. How do you answer that?
So I just look forward. Agentic AI is kind of the 3 to 5 year phase that we're in the 20-year era. You think about physical AI. If you think that we're getting out of this era and we're not all going to have a humanoid robot doing the dishes and doing the laundry, I mean, that vision Bill Gates had of a computer in every home when IBM thought they were going to sell 10,000 of them to hobbyists was a make or break moment. It was obviously launched him to be the richest person in the world, but this is the idea. And this is, if you think about Tesla and other companies, I mean, this is what they're betting on. The world was made by humans for humans. And right now we're thinking that we should have a kitty litter robot and we should have a sweeper robot and we should have these, 5,000 robots running around our house. And it actually makes no sense. The world was made for humans. So a humanoid robot will be able to change your cat litter, sweep the floor, do it at times when you're asleep, all self-automated and things like that. But that's the era of physical AI that comes after agentic. But the promise of AI, if you think about this underestimating the 10, here's where it sits. It's if I'm thinking about jobs in the future and my, young kids graduating and where they're going to be, is today's AI, while it's got very smart, and by the way, when they cancel my flight, it's very empathetic. They feel very bad for you in the chatbot. But that chatbot really doesn't go beyond language pattern matching to try to simulate empathy. Now, what I really want is two things. I want it to have access to data. For example, today, 2 years into AI, 99% of the world's business data has yet to be trained or tuned.
Mm.
83% of it sits in cold storage at the edge. So now, when they cancel my flight, I want them to look back for me, 53 different years of flying, 104 countries I've been to, and kind of get a sense for the other 1,000 times they've canceled my flight, what my reaction was and what my next best action was. So getting access to that 1964 stored data of everything I've ever done in that industry would be really important for that empathetic chatbot to consume. Now that it understands that I'm not the get me a Marriott, get me the 5 a.m. flight, I'll be back at the airport in 4 hours, ready to fly. I'm literally the, hey, I have kids. Get me to within, 6 hours of my destination anywhere. and get me a Hertz rental because I'm driving. I'm taking my kids to school tomorrow morning, hell or high water. So that's a difference. That's now getting access to data of who I am and my entire history. But then it becomes agentic. On one side, I want them to go talk to the Marriott and talk to Uber and talk about the whole 5 a.m. thing if that's who I am, or go talk to Hertz, go talk to another airline to get me somewhere within a vicinity of where I need to go. But those are the things that change the world. It takes data, it takes agentic. It's more than just empathy and a chatbot that can simulate language in a really cool way.
Yeah, early days. Look, I mean, it's for different people, right? I mean, for me, it seems to be a lot of data that's already out there, and I just wonder if it's a little bit too much data. But let's assume that that's all going to happen, and we're going to have a crazy world in the future for all
I
of
don't think
us.
it's I don't think it's the important data.
Mm,
I don't think your banking data is floating out there, your insurance data, your pharmaceutical data. I don't think
mm,
your airline data, like go through all 27 industries, your government data, your social security, and I actually don't think your data is floating out there. What is floating out there is, 32 years of my blogs or my podcasts or the
mm.
conversations we've had every year at this time. That's all been consumed. And ChatGPT can talk in you or I language if you ask it to, by
Yeah.
name. Hey, can you write me 800-word summary on this conversation today? Write it in Jay McBain's language from Canales.
Mm.
And it's dazzling. It's better than I can write.
It's
But the
amazing.
fact of the matter is, it's this consumption of just everyday pattern matching. It really doesn't have access. This is the business conversation.
Mm,
The consumer piece is there and
mm.
it's accelerating, every 6 months. It passes the bar exam, and then the next, 6 months later, it's the top 10%. Then 6 months later, it's writing the bar exam. That's what we're watching, this scope we're watching now. But when it gets access to data, that changes everything.
I'd hate to know how much data is out there about me already, but I'll leave it for a different conversation. Well, they're looking to replace the bar exam now up here, you know. Why
Like,
take the bar? IQ isn't being challenged. It's now everybody's got the ability to have massive IQ. Maybe EQ is the next thing, I assume.
well, this is the argument, right? It's anybody coming out of college, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a junior paralegal, whatever you're coming out with, this idea of doing research of, hey, is there a precedent for this case in law? When in a matter of seconds, they could go back through every legal case in every country, 193 countries, through
Mm.
all of recorded history. Like literally in Greece, 3,000 years ago, this case came up and this is how it came out. But last week in Wichita, this is what a judge, I mean, the cases are almost done. So what happens to that accountant? What happens to these junior, folks when you take out that layer of necessity? Those are the jobs being replaced. They never become partners. They never become senior enough to argue in front of a judge. 30 years from now, who goes in front of the Supreme Court? It's not going to be a large language model. So if you took out the 10 or 20 years that we all learned in our trade, and we didn't start giving back to our companies, we didn't actually become profitable till probably year 20 when we started giving back at a different layer. And that's the philosophical question right now.
Yeah, so one day you'll go up and the judge will not be a human, will be some robot there deciding about, I think, no, you're guilty or whatever that case may be. Look,
Yeah.
let's flip to the 2026, looking forward now. I mean, you're obviously in this space, swimming in the deep end of data every day and trying to figure out what's going on. What should we in the IT industry be focused on in 2026?
Yeah, I mean the best companies in the world, the most profitable companies, the people that, earn the highest valuations and things. I mean, these are interesting conversations to talk about humanoids and bar exams and things like that. But they come back to me, they come back to other data folks and say, listen, 2026, you're calling on about $5.5 trillion. It's a trillion in hardware, it's a trillion in software. Here's where the services are, managed services, etc. Can you break out every slice of that pie and show me where the double digit growth? Because if the industry is going to grow at about 6 or 7% again, I want to grow at 14. So if you're telling me managed security is going to grow at 15% in 2026, which it is, how am I going to go get that? What are the skills? What are the practices? What would be the go to market? How do I go and in this really complex ecosystem of 6,500 security vendors, where do I spend my time? How do I build this practice? And if I do it really well, maybe I won't grow average 15%. Maybe I could grow at 30% if I can do it better than my competitors can do. And so they're asking the questions at every part of our industry is, well, the 10-year thing is fun over a beer, conversation. It's I want to grow my business 30%, next year and grow my profitability by 50%. So where are the areas? Should I have gone to AWS reInvent last week in Vegas? Should have I gone to Ignite, in San Francisco 2 weeks before that? Should have I gone to CrowdStrike? Should I go to, and the answer is I should go to Julian's events. But the idea is like where, again, limited time, where do I spend my time and effort to go double, triple, quadruple what the industry, what my customers are looking to do? And those are the quantified questions of I'm not going to waste a lot of time
I
if
mean,
there's not
everybody
money
talks.
building agents,
Yeah. I mean, everybody's playing and dabbling in the world, but it just seems to me when I'm out there, I hear cybersecurity and AI and cybersecurity. And then once I'm tired of hearing that, I look at the dark side and I see all kinds of crazy stuff that, the bad actors are using AI for. And I just see that we're just at the beginning of this new, I don't want to say escalated cyber war, but it's gone crazy. Besides cybersecurity AI, is that what you're also hearing as well, or is there other things we should be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of other things. Inside AI, I mentioned, 15% growth in managed security. The fastest growing services opportunity globally over the next 5 years, compounded, is AI.
Hmm.
So when I think about, and this is broad, when I think about the consulting, the design, the architecture, the implementation, the integration, when I think about the managed services, when I kind of think about the wrapper around it, last week, AWS used our research to say there's $7.13 available for every dollar of AWS. So there's no customer in the world that's going to outsource all of it. But the chances of going and winning $2, $3, $4 for every dollar of AWS, now a $140 billion company, is there. I want to ask these questions because CrowdStrike had a similar $7
Hmm.
number, and Cisco just had a $6.06 number. And this is the research that we're writing, is to say, with my skills, with the practices I put in and my expertise I put in place, and the great customers we have and the markets we're in, what's a realistic way to double or triple the market growth? It changes slightly for everybody. I mean, there's not one blanket answer, but if AI is going to grow at 35.3% compounded for the next 5 years and become a $267 billion thing, I want to have my eye on that because that's something that's happening, and it's the largest opportunity if marketplaces are growing and they're going to hit 167 billion, and 59% of those deals are going to include partners. As a partner, I'm going to think about, maybe it's not I'm charging my managed services directly to the customer anymore. They're spending the half trillion that they banked with the hyperscalers in credits.
Hmm.
Those credits can now be dragged in to buy my services. So if I'm going to sell $2 or $3 in services for every dollar of something, maybe a marketplace is a wonderful place. And I should spend some extra time going into 2026, how I can get my fair share of something that I know for the next 5 years is growing by leaps and bounds.
I think I mean, the whole channel community depends on how you slice it up. I saw that you said 1,000 companies is sort of like eating up about over half, 60% of the market, right?
Two-thirds, yeah.
And then you look at that and you go, damn, and then they're buying companies at a rate of what, 7 per minute or some crazy number. And you think, well, where are we? What's going to happen to the other half? And what defines that? Is it just because they're gobbling up other companies, that they're just growing leaps and bounds, or is it there's a way for others to catch up?
Yeah, I mean, it's partially the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule that we've always grown up in, that a smaller number of
I
things,
hated that rule
like
from day one, man.
when we run an MSP, 20%
Yep,
of customers drive 80% of our revenue. It's always been that way. But
yep.
we spent, this was a good example of what AI couldn't do. 99% of partners out there of all types, VARs, MSPs, SIs, ISVs, in the broader world, are private companies. So they're not, sending their P&L out to ChatGPT to say,
Mm,
hey, this is what I do for a living. They're very protective. And so we spent 2 years and thousands of analyst hours to go through for the first time and get us a global Fortune 500. It's never really existed in our industry. And we had to go past resell. Because resell, if you have a big customer and you sell them 1,000 laptops, I mean,
mm,
that's one thing. But it'd be different in terms of how much value you add around that. So the top 1,000 out of, millions of partners deliver two-thirds or $1.07 trillion of tech services. Number one on the list is Accenture with 779,000 people. These are people on the bench
mm.
that they're trying to get engaged. They're trying to learn the latest cloud or AI skills. And there's enough demand with services outgrowing products in many cases to place those people and earn three, four, $500,000 per person in services and be profitable doing that. But that's at the very top. But to reach the bottom of the list, to get on the list, is $29 million of pure services. So I don't care if you sold 1,000 laptops. What else did you do with those laptops? Well, I configured them, I delivered them, I support them, I manage them. I perfect. If that is the most profitable sticky part, but having this list is important for us just to kind of recognize that the Pareto principle is more of 99.90.1.
Mm.
Having 1,000 companies do $1 trillion in services, almost two-thirds of the world, is a quantifiable way to look at it. But vendors look at this as well. Where am I going to put my channel account managers? Where am I going to put, specific program dollars? And then how underneath that, there might be a million partners below that that are prospects. I'm not going to fly to your headquarters location and do a lunch and learn, but how do I get into the community and the grassroots and how do I surround all the partners that may line up with me in the market? And that's why, the work that you do is so important is, how do I go top down? How do I go bottom up? How do I build this go to market when 96% of my deals have partners surrounding them and the bigger deals have seven partners surrounding them? Well, I got to dig in. I got to dig into the media. I got to dig into events. I got to dig into podcasts. I got to dig into this whole community. And we're just here, counting and building the system underneath that.
Look, I mean, it's a very large channel ecosystem we're playing with, right? And it's kind of hard to kind of like analyze each individual companies and what makes, what's their superpower, what
Mhm.
makes them well. And as I speak to some of those companies, and there's always interesting things I come away with when I ask, like, why did you get here? Like, how the hell did you get here? And leadership has a lot to do with that. Sometimes it's about getting the right clients,
Mhm.
offering the first to get the right services, like taking risks, playing, testing out AI. Those ones that seem to be doing well or is just experimenting like hell. I mean, good, bad, or indifferent. They're just doing stuff, right? Um, if you had to look at the characteristics of successful MSPs, what are one or two or three things would you say they should all be doing?
Yeah, I mean, you got to fight against digital sameness.
Mm.
Everybody, you think about your website and you got that, paragraph up top of,
Oh, look alike.
all things to all people all the time. We deliver the holy grail of managed services, blah, blah, blah. And somebody might have cut and paste that from your website onto their website, and then somebody cut and paste that. So when you're, in the old world, it would have been Google trying to backlink and trying to, do, some high level pattern matching and things. And if somebody were to Google who would be my best partners in Northern Scotland, Google would do its best job to try to do that. Well, large language models are so much more powerful than that. So now it's Gemini. 60% of people now don't click through a link on
Mm.
Google. They just read the Gemini or they read the ChatGPT or the Grok or the Perplexity or the Claude. So that 60 is going to become 80 and that 80 is going to become 95. That we're just answer first people. I don't want a bunch of links to go hunt. I just want the answer. So in that world, if your paragraph just says you do all things to all people, the digital sameness says that the large language models will never be able to differentiate you. You're better off just saying, I serve mid-sized banks in Inverness, Scotland. I provide exactly these services. I do it better than my competitors do. And so when somebody else's system comes in and says, hey, we're doing really poorly in Northern Scotland, who should we partner with who really has, Good. Well, those are the people that do well with banks. Well, here's another one that does well with healthcare. Here's one that does well with government. It's to the next level now. Is it pattern matching is the next thing, and how programs are going to be built and how economics are going to work. Get away from this marketing
Mm.
fuzzy language and just publicly write ebooks, record podcasts, get into events, do everything possible to shout from the mountaintop the things you actually are super powered at and repeat it over and over and over again and demonstrate why you're 20% better than your competitor in that particular market niche.
Good advice. Well, to be continued in the future. We'll talk more about what's going on in 2026 and what's happening. But before you jump, if you had to put 2026 in one word, what would it be? I know it's putting you in a spot there, but
Bifurcated.
okay. So that's the word we're going to go with.
It's a tale of two cities.
Mm.
And again, we can do what we do and continue on the path that we're on. Nothing about AI, nothing about what's happening and all the changes in the world are going to change that. But on the other side is how do I look at the next era?
Mm.
And if I was around in 1981, in a business, if I was around in 1999 in a business and you could go back in a time machine, boy, would you do a few things differently. Watching the billionaires or now trillionaires get created. Well, now you don't need a time machine. No DeLorean is needed. We're here. We're here right now. And everything everything you've experienced, everything that's built you to right here is to say that, there could be another, few million, 10 million, 100 million in your business. If you kind of saw the trains leaving the station, the trends that are there, these are pretty much certain. This is not crystal ball. This is all, trains picking up speed.
Happening.
You pick a point in the future of where these trains are going to converge. I mean, whatever kind of business you want to build, those are the
Now's the time.
visionaries at the time that are able to project and figure out how to go do it.
Jay, it's a great time to be alive, man. And you keep doing what you're doing. I'll keep doing what I do. And hopefully, things get better. All right, man. Take care. Cheers.
Take care. Thank you.